Well, scientists are stating that Yellowstone supervolcano is a bigger threat than climate change. What's up, everybody? Truth Seeker here. This article says an eventual supervolcano at Yellowstone National Park may be a greater threat to humanity than climate change ever was. If it bursts, Arizona State researchers believe it could cover the entire United States in ash.
Scientists are releasing a new warning about the threat of a massive supervolcano eruption, like the one under Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming. The European Science Foundation has released a 70-page report called Extreme Geohazards, Reducing the Disaster Risk and Increasing Resilience. It references the Yellowstone supervolcano. Now, Yellowstone's volcano doesn't look like some others because it's a caldera, or a crater. It's around ground level instead of towering into the clouds. But scientists say it covers a really enormous reserve of magma beneath the Earth's surface. We have a rendering of what scientists say is underneath that volcano, an ocean of molten rock, they tell us, that stretches for hundreds of miles. Of course, nobody needs to freak out right now at all. Scientists say there's only about a 10% chance of an eruption like this happening anytime this century. So there's a good chance you'll never see it. But 10%, I mean, that's not tiny. And the U.S. Geological Survey noted last year, even if Yellowstone does erupt, it could be a small incident, not some Armageddon type thing. Michio Kaku joins us now. He's a theoretical physicist, a professor, a best-selling author, and friend of the program. Give us some context on this, what we're talking about here.
Well, forget the image of Yogi Bear representing Yellowstone. We're talking about a sleeping Godzilla underneath Yellowstone that, if it erupts in a maximum eruption called Category 8, it could literally tear the guts out of the United States of America. Instead of having 50 states of the Union, we would only have 30 states of the Union. Now, that's Category 8. This report looked at Category 7, which is much more likely once every 1,000 years rather than once every million years. That means in every century, there's a 10% chance that somewhere on the planet Earth there could be a supervolcanic Category 7 eruption. That's the danger.
You just talked about a volcano that could wipe out 20 states. How in the world is that possible?
Well, it's happened before. 2.1 million years ago, 1.3, and also 0.6 million years ago. We have the evidence of a gigantic eruption that is sufficient to tear the guts out of the U.S. of A. So this report has to be taken seriously, but hey, don't sell the store, don't panic. We don't expect it to happen in our lifetime.
It's hard really to imagine this lake of lava that stretches hundreds of miles in all directions. How do we know that, and how do they read that?
Well, just 2 years ago, there was a scare, in fact. We actually began to measure the size of this lava hotspot, and it turned out to be twice as big as we previously thought. However, the good news is that it's not migrating, it's not moving. We see no indication whatsoever that a big one is coming. However, eventually the law of averages catches up to you. And this report singled out Mount Vesuvius outside Naples, Italy, outside Mexico City, and Yellowstone as 3 hotspots where a Category 7 volcanic eruption could indeed take place in this century.
So there are only 3 of this size in all the world?
Well, there's several in Indonesia and New Zealand that have had Category 8 eruptions, in fact. But then again, we're talking about once every million years for Category 8. Category 7 will be many times the size of Mount St. Helens, enough to cause widespread destruction across a state, but not enough to destroy the U.S. of A. But still something that we have to take very seriously now.
What would we get in the way of warnings, Michio?
Well, unlike a meteor from outer space, where you get no warning whatsoever, we get warnings. If you've seen movies like Pompeii, you know that there are days, in fact weeks, of eruptions building up, grumbling inside, underneath the ground, near the pocket of lava. So there would be enough time, several weeks, in order to begin evacuation if and when such an unlikely event were to take place.
All right, Michio Kaku on the news deck. No time to panic, but interesting, very interesting. Thank you.
Now, it said it has a 10% chance, and that to me means that it is a possibility still. It's a 10% chance. It's not like a 1 out of a million, but 10% is somewhat to actually raise an eyebrow too. Temperatures have been on the rise with Yellowstone for a while now. There have also been a lot of earthquakes happening, and it says an ongoing swarm of 25,000 earthquakes since June 12th represents the longest ever in U.S. history, according to Newsweek. U.S. Geological Survey experts said it was fascinating to monitor the swarm and were eager to learn more about it. A total of 115 quakes were reported in the Spark in September, according to a monthly update about the activity at Yellowstone. Of those, 78 were part of the swarm in the northwest of Yellowstone. The highest magnitude quake was a 2.3 in September, including the events from the prior 3-monthly report beginning on June 12th. Total swarm seismicity includes one earthquake of a magnitude 4.4, 12 in the magnitude 3 range, and 185 earthquakes in the magnitude 2 range, the statement said. About half of the seismic activity at Yellowstone was part of the earthquake swarm, which occurred when many quakes took place over weeks or months with no clear sequence, unlike traditional earthquakes where there is a main event followed by a series of aftershocks. USGS Yellowstone Volcano Observatory head scientist Mike Poland told Newsweek it was a bit too soon to say whether the swarm has ended. But the activity has certainly waned drastically against August, and the swarm appears to be winding down, if not completely over. It will probably take a little while longer to declare it over. The actual number of earthquakes is difficult to ascertain because quakes can overlap or are too small to be recorded, he said. However, there are ways to retrospectively locate some of these events, so it could be that there have been many times more earthquakes than initially reported. This is the sort of work that will happen in the months to come as we gather up all the available data and start crunching numbers, Poland said. What we can say now is that through the end of September, the University of Utah has located 2,475 earthquakes in the swarm. This puts the 2017 swarm on par with that of 1985, which lasted 3 months and had over 3,000 located events. This is certainly a fascinating event, and one that we hope to learn more about through some post-swarm analytics. There's a lot of work on this winter for sure. So I mean, it's a 10% likability chance. So yeah, that's still not as threatening as what all the fearmongers are out there trying to promote. But then again, this is still data from people that we say are official. So I don't know. I can't say that this is my conclusion to go ahead and say this is what you should believe in. But there is a lot of strong factors and points in this to actually learn from. There's a lot of data in this to learn from. And when you compare this stuff from stuff that happened years ago and stuff like that, it's starting to kind of sync together a little. But definitely leave your thoughts in the comments below and what you think about all this. And thanks for watching, everybody.
Well, throughout history, massive volcanic eruptions have had damaging effects to our planet and its people. Well, scientists at NASA are now trying to prevent future events, which they say may just be the only way to save the human race. RT's Trini Chavez explains.
Supervolcanic eruptions have had some devastating effects on our planet and all those on it. Therefore, experts at NASA are working on some risky strategies to prevent one from happening, since we may be on the brink of one erupting very soon. Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming is famous for its tranquil geysers and hot springs. But beneath its beautiful surface of the park lies a massive volcanic chamber that could be on the verge of exploding. According to the United States Geological Survey, 3 extremely large explosive eruptions have occurred at Yellowstone in the past 2.1 million years, with a reoccurrence interval of about 600,000 to 800,000 years. The most recent took place 640,000 years ago, suggesting that Yellowstone is overdue for an eruption. But outlets like geysers and hot springs at the park can bleed out some heat, delaying the inevitable eruption. And when NASA experts analyzed the problem, they thought the most logical solution would be to cool the volcano down. NASA has a plan to drill a hole into the side of the volcano and pump water through it. When the water comes back out, it'll be heated to over 600 degrees, slowly cooling the volcano. The team hopes that given enough time, this process will take enough heat from the volcano to prevent it from ever erupting. According to the BBC, Brian Wilcox, a former member of the NASA Advisory Council on Planetary Defense, talked about the actual devastation that could come from an eruption and the risky techniques that the agency is considering for preventing one, including ways that could potentially set one off. The possible plan would drill into the bottom of the Yellowstone volcano using high-pressure water to release heat from the magma chamber. But Wilcox said this could be very risky. He told the BBC this can make the cap over the magma chamber more brittle and prone to fracture, and you might trigger the release of harmful volatile gases in the magma at the top of the chamber, which would otherwise not be released. Although NASA is considering other plans, it seems that cooling down the volcano could work even though it's a risky process. And it's not cheap either. The plan would be around an estimated $4.5 billion. Reporting in New York, Trinity Chavez, RT.
I also wanted to let you know that I opened up a social network just recently called Buddy List. It was an original social network I had about 4 years ago, and then it had some downtime, and I just now decided to bring it back up because I figured what would be a better way to communicate with everyone that's a part of my channel. And so I figured, why not? Everybody come over to buddylist.co, and it's really simple to sign up. And then once you're in, you'll be able to just communicate with everybody. Even got a giant chat room that you could go to that actually lets you talk to every single person that's in here. But yeah, come by, check it out. It's buddylist.co. Please subscribe to our channel, like our video, and comment below. And we'll see you on the flip side. Peace! And don't forget to click the notification bell.